Hello, welcome to this facilitation class again. As I've introduced myself earlier on, my name is Professor Sami Michael Ayodele from the Department of Biological Sciences, Faculty of Sciences, National Open University of Nigeria. So in this course, Bar 192, we are into lesson 6 of this class. And in the past, we have talked about the plant kingdom, the animal kingdoms, and today we are continuing with the animal kingdom. And the phyla that we are going to consider today include the phylum Rotifera, the phylum Nematoda, and the phylum Annelida. The phylum is made up of animals that are mostly macroscopic eukaryotes. They are mostly found in fresh and marine water. The member of the phylum are triploblastic and they are bilaterally symmetrical in nature, and they are unsegmented animals. So they are pseudocoelomate animals that exhibit constant number of body cells in them. So, and then when we say pseudocoelomate, it means their body may partially have some opening between the cells. The place where we found the rotifer, that is the habitat, are mostly freshwater, but there are some members that can be found in the marine, or even they live in the environment that is damp on land. The appearance, which are the morphology of the phylum Rotifer, and as we have said that they are triploblastic and they are bilaterally symmetrical, and the members are unsegmented, that is, they do not have segments, and their size range between 0.1 to 0.5 millimeter long. So some rotifers are free swimming and truly planktonic in nature, and then we have others that move by each swarming along a substrate on which they live. So some are sessile, and then when we say an organism is sessile, it means they rarely move from place to place. So they are living inside tubes or in a gelatinous holdfast that are attached to a substrate in their environment or in their habitat. So we have about 25 species of these rotifer that are colonial in nature. And those that are colonial include Synantherina semibullata, which is either sessile or they could be planktonic in nature. So their structures of rotifers is usually divided into three parts, as you can see in the picture or the diagram on the right hand side of this slide. So the head, the trunk, and the foot, these are the three main parts of the rotifers. And the head has a ciliary organ, and we call this ciliary organ the corona. And when we talk about corona, it looks like a crown. So the corona looks like a wheel, turning wheel, when beaten in the water in the environment. This corona is also used for feeding in the rotifer. And the rotifer have a complete gut, that is, they have their gut that is fully complete, and they have protonephridia in them too, but they lack specialized circulatory or gas exchange structures in their system. Then we group them and we classify them into various groups. So, and in the phylum rotifers, so they are divided into three main classes. And the three classes in rotifers are Monogonota, we have Deloidea, and then we have Sosnedia. These are the three classes that are recognized under the phylum rotifers. Then how do they cope in their habitat or in the environment where they found themselves. So the adaptive features of rotifers include the following. They are cryptobiosis in nature, and cryptobiosis is a remarkable ability to survive during the dry or withstand desiccation during the dry weather or when the environment is not conducive for them. So they carry out what we call cryptobiosis. And the rotifer's egg can also withstand drying, with older embryo having a greater chance of survival during the unfavorable conditions. Two, one of the adaptive features is that they can conserve their energy, that is energy conservation. Some members such as Brachyneus caliciferous can reduce the rate of its respiration when food is scarce to save energy. And of course, we know food in the body is depleted during respiration. So, but in this particular group of organisms, what they do is that they reduce the rate of their respiration in order to conserve food in them. Other species show no change in their respiratory rate. Number three, they can coexist during the competition with other species in their environment. And some rotifer species have the ability to adapt to resources with temporal variation in availability. That is, if there's scarcity of food in their environment, they have the ability to adapt in order to cope with such unavailable resources in their environment. So this adaptation allows the coexistence of competing species of rotifers in their habitat. Number four, they have what we call anhydrobiosis. And this anhydrobiosis under drought conditions, a typical example like bladder rotifers contract into an inert form, that is, they will not be active because of the environment. So, and they then lose almost all the body water in order for them to survive the unfavorable conditions. But when the conditions become favorable, that is when they are rehydrated, they resume activities within few minutes. Number five of the adaptive feature is that they have adhesive gland on the foot which attach them to their substratum. So the adhesive help to attach the animal to the substratum on which they found themselves. So, and then sixth, they have resting eggs. Their eggs can become rest when the environment is not conducive. And the individual of some species form two distinct types of parthenogenetic eggs during these unfavorable conditions. One type developed into a normal pathogenetic female during this period, and the other occurs in response to a changed environment and develops into a degenerate male that lacks a digestive system when the environment is not favorable, but does have a complete male reproductive system that is used to inseminate female, thereby producing a fertilized resting eggs when the environment has become conducive. And the resting eggs are also termed diapausin eggs. That is what we call those eggs that are at resting stage. Resting eggs develop into zygotes, and that is when the environment becomes favorable. So those eggs that are at resting stage can now develop into zygote, and the zygote are able to survive extreme environmental conditions. Then such as may occur during winter or when the pond dries up in the habitat. So, and these eggs resume development and produce a new female generation when the condition improve again. So it means the eggs are capable of withstanding unfavorable conditions, and when the conditions become favorable, then they can now resume their normal activities. Then the other phylum that we are going to look at is the phylum Nematoda, and this is where we found the roundworms. And the roundworm also are pseudocelomate roundworms, and they are primarily bilaterally symmetrical. That is the member of the nematoda. So, and then they have lateral side a dorsal and a ventral side. This group of animals. So they have a lateral side and a dorsal and ventral side. So they are round in nature. That is, their body structure is round, and that's why we refer to them as roundworms. Their body is also covered by corticals, and then they grow by molting, just like as we found in insects. Of course, during the metamorphosis, insects undergo molting in some cases. So this group of worms also undergo molting during their growing process. And the molting is a feature that is shared with the insect. So they do not show any segmentation in them. The roundworm do not have segment in their body. They are important parasites of plants as well as man and other animals. So we have typical example of this roundworm, such as Ascaris lumbricoid, which is a endoparasite in man. Then the parasite of plant include Melodogina species, which infect plant. Then where are the habitats of nematode? That is, where do we commonly find them? So nematodes are found in the following habitats. In the soil, we find them. Inside plants and animals, including man, those that are endoparasite are found in man. Then you can also find them inside ice. Of course, in the extreme cold environment. Then you can also find them in hot desert. So find them also in the ocean. So it means you can find them almost everywhere, particularly where the environment is very harsh, such as a very cold environment inside the ice, and then when the weather is extremely hot, such as in the hot desert, you can find the nematodes. Their physical appearance, that is their morphology. So they have a longitudinal body axis, and they are primarily bilaterally symmetrical, as I've mentioned earlier on. So they have lateral sides, they have a dorsal and a ventral side, which include body openings. And the nematodes are not segmented and are generally colorless. They do not have color. They do not appear in different colors. So they do not have a true body cavity lined with epithelial tissues. So, and that's why we refer to them as a pseudocoelomate. Then the structure of nematodes. They have the following structures in their body wall. One, digestive system. They have the nervous, excretory, and reproductive system. Then they lack a typical circulatory, respiratory, and endocrine system. This main system in higher organisms are not found in the nematodes. So there's nothing like circulatory system, there's nothing like respiratory system, and they do not have endocrine system in their body structure. The body wall is made up of somatic muscles, hypodermis, and they have corticals. And of course, this cortical is the outermost layer, and it is the one that gives the nematode protection and support. Then the cortical has alternating horizontal grooves and ridges at regular intervals for support. The ridge is called striation or annulation in the nematodes. They also have longitudinal markings on them. And other structures on the cortical include papillae, setae, spinosum, and bristles. These are some of the things you can see on the cortical of the nematodes. We are going to use Ascaris as one of the examples of the nematodes. And of course, it's a common roundworm that we know. And its species are found as intestinal parasite in vertebrates mainly. So the species of Ascaris are quite large in size, as you can see in the picture at the right side of this slide. That is the nematode Ascaris. The Ascaris lumbricoid is commonly found in humans, and the Ascaris megalocephala is found in horse. The Ascaris zoom is commonly found in pig, and the Ascaris galli is found in the chicken. So it means the species of Ascaris are found in most of the animals: human, horse, pig, and chicken. So, and that's why those of us that like to maybe consume pig, we need to take care and make sure we boil them properly. In case if they are infected with ascaris, you can destroy them before you consume. Otherwise, you will be consuming the endoparasite. So also the chicken. So we need to cook our chicken very well before we consume to avoid contacting these ascaris. Then the habitat of ascaris. The lumbricoid that is found in man, as I've said, is an endoparasite, and it is found in the small intestine of man, lying freely in the lumen of the intestine. So it is a cosmopolitan in distribution, that is almost everywhere you can find it. So it is found more commonly in children than adults. That is, children commonly contact or are infected with this ascaris mainly. Sometimes it migrates from the intestine of the host to stomach and comes out through the mouth or nostril of the host. So that is this ascaris can migrate from the intestine and then through the stomach, and eventually it can come out through the mouth, or it can come out through the nostril of the host. And as many as about 1,000 to 5,000 adult worms may inhabit a single host. So then mode of nutrition of ascaris is holozoic, as it feeds on host, partly digested food by sucking action of its environment. So then that is why when a child is suffering from worms, particularly ascaris, you see that no matter how you feed them, they are not there will be no appreciation of the feeding. So you see them probably their stomach will be robust with long neck, as if they are not feeding well. It's as a result of the presence of worm, and that's why regularly we need to deworm our children. So because we don't know when they could be infested with this type of worms. It produces anti-enzymes to protect itself from the action of the host enzyme, since they are found in the intestine. So, and of course, we know intestine produces enzymes, digestive enzyme at times. So this ascaris has a corticus, and the cortical is the one that prevents the enzyme from being affected. So they have what we call anti-enzymes to protect them from the action of the enzymes of the host. They have sexual dimorphism, which is very distinct in ascaris. Only sexual reproduction takes place in ascaris, and sexual reproduction does not occur in the ascaris. So, and then the life cycle is simple and monogenetic, that is no secondary host. So it only infects one host. There's no intermediate host in ascaris. So only one host. So, and that's why we say it is monogenic in nature. So it has no secondary host through which it first of all passes its life cycle before it can invest. So it has only one host. Then what are the adaptive features of ascaris? So the ascaris have a simple structure, and that simple structure is the external cortical. And these corticals, as we have said, is for support and protection. So the cortical, along with longitudinal muscles, allow the roundworm to bend from side to side and to move in a thrashing manner as we see them moving. So it is the presence of these corticals in them that enable them to move in that manner. So they can move from side to side, so during their movement. So the cortical is permeable by fluid and gases, so therefore allowing respiration to occur over the whole body of the ascaris. So despite the fact that they have this cortical that protect them, so they can still take in fluid, and they can also pass out or take in gases in them all over their body. So the adaptation of a hard and flexible yet permeable skin cortical enable roundworm to maintain their internal fluid under high pressure. So that is part of the adaptive feature of the ascaris. So though despite the fact that they have a hard and flexible these corticals, but it still enable them to maintain their internal fluid under high pressure. Then the nervous system of them is one of the adaptive features. So the nerve cord relays sensory information with tactile, chemosensory, and light sensitive receptor are also found in the ascaris. And then this light sensitive receptor help them in their movement toward light or away from light. They also have digestion, and then the digestive system of the roundworm include one, the mouth. With it, you can imagine they have teeth, they have gut, and they have anus, and also they have a pharynx, just as we have in the higher animals. Also, reproduction is part of the adaptive features. Then the roundworm lay eggs, which can be highly resistant to adverse environmental, as I've explained earlier on, that they produce different type of eggs to enable them survive when the environment is not conducive. So such a condition include when the weather is very dry, the weather is very hot, or the weather is very cold. Then they have what we call Utley. And in this weekly, every individual of the roundworm species has the exact same number of cells. Whether the condition is favorable or not, they have the same number of cells, and that is what we call Utley, so which is part of the adaptive feature in them. Then now we talk about the third phylum that we are going to discuss today, and that is the phylum Annelida. So, and this phylum Annelida are the segmented worms that have true coelom or body cavity. So they have a cavity in their body. So they are bilaterally symmetrical and also show cephalization. So, and then this cephalization is you can distinguish their body into different uh, sections. So they have both the circular and longitudinal muscles in them. We have example of the members of the Annelida, which include the earthworm, the leeches, and the nares. These are the common examples of the phylum Annelida. This phylum consists of earthworm, leeches, and various marine worms, given many different names, such as sandworms, toothworms, and so on. So the major advances of this phylum include the presence of true coelom. So they have segmentation, both longitudinal and circular muscles, and they have a closed circulatory system, unlike the previous phyla that we have discussed. For most, a more advanced external system, which we call metanephridia, is found in the group. Where do we find Annelida, the members of Annelida, that is their habitat. So the annelids may be found in aquatic environment, they could be found in marine or freshwater, and they can also be found on land. So it means they can be found both in aquatic and on land, or where the environment is damp or wet. What are the diagnostic features of the phylum Annelida? So that is when you see certain features in a worm, then you can recognize it to be a member of Annelida. So what are some of these features that you can use to recognize the phylum? So, and as we have said, that the member of Annelida are segmented worms, and the segments are both internal and external. So the segments are separated by cross wall or septa, so that can be recognized on them. The moment you see some of these characteristics or features, then you recognize them as members of Annelida. So each segment can function as an individual. So that is, despite the fact that they are separated, so individual can function. Then they have a true coelom, that is cavity in them. So now we classify the phylum Annelida into many groups. Particularly, there are three groups into which we classify them. And then one, the class Oligoceta. So, and then these members are segmented worm that include the earthworm. So this is the photograph of a worm, that is an earthworm on the right hand side of this slide. You can see this is a typical earthworm. So, and they belong to the class Oligoceta. So the earthworm extracts nutrient through though through as it eats its way through the soil. We are found in the soil, of course. As it is burrowing into the soil, that is when it extracts its nutrient from the soil. Then they have undigested materials mixed with mucus that are secreted into the digestive tract, which is ingested through the anus of the earthworm. There are about 3,250 known species of Oligochaeta, so which can be found in soil. Example is the earthworm. See, about 3,250 members of this class. So they can also be found in shallow or estuarial water. And then when we talk about estuarial water, that is where the brackish water, where the sea and the fresh water meet. You can find them there. Then the second class is the class Polychaeta. And each segment of this class, Polychaeta, has a pair of paddle-like structures called parapodia that function in the locomotion of the class, as you can see in the picture. So they have two paddle-like structures, and this is the one they use in their marine habitat or in the aquatic habitat, so with which they move about in the marine environment or aquatic environment. So the parapodia are richly supplied with blood vessels and function as gills. Of course, the function of gills is respiration. So most of Polychaeta are found in the marine habitat. Then the third class is the class Hirundinea, and this is where we find leeches. You can see the diagram of the leeches in the slide, as you can see it. So we need to study these leeches. As you can see, it is flat. Majority of leeches live in fresh water. That is where you find them. But some are land leeches that move through moist vegetation. So leeches are usually found in warm, protected shallow that have little to no current and a slightly basic pH, that is a very acidic environment. That's where you find them. So leeches also tend to avoid light and to hide under stones or within aquatic plants. That is, they avoid light naturally. So some species of leeches are active at night. That is, they are nocturnal. They are only active during the night. So, and the many leeches feed on other invertebrates in the environment. Some leeches are blood-sucking parasites that feed on animals and humans. So leeches secrete enzymes that digest a whole through the body of their host. Then the structure of leeches. Their body is made up of cavity called xylem. And the xylem is a fluid-filled space between the innermost cell layer and the outer two cell layers of the leeches. So in this space, the reproductive and digestive organs have evolved into complex structure with complex functions in the leeches. So also the digestive system is cushioned in the xylem, that is the spaces between the body tissues. The activities of the digestive system take place without interacting with the inner or outer body walls. So in earthworm and other annelids, they have numerous segments. So and each segment is separated from other by internal partitions. There is a funnel-shaped excretory unit called nephridia, which is an organ of excretion in the leeches. So the nephridia is located in most of the segment of the leeches. And then the function of nephridia is to remove water and waste, particularly when they are in excess in the system. So the needed water is reabsorbed, just like we have a kidney in the higher animals. So and then waste material pass out of the body through the pores in the skin of the leeches. Each segment has longitudinal and circular muscles, and these muscles contract and compress fluid to form a water-based skeleton called a hydrostatic skeleton. And these annelids have a digestive and circulatory system running their entire length of the body. So the circulatory system is closed, and blood is circulated by the contraction of several muscular vessels that is called hearts in them. The Phylum Annelida contains several classes of worms. Among the worms are those found in mud and sand. Examples are the familiar earthworm, which we have mentioned before, and then the leeches. So all annelids reproduce by a sexual method where sperm and egg cells are released into water for fertilization to take place. What are the adaptive features of the phylum Annelida? So annelids have the following adaptive features: presence of the coelom, the replaceable body parts, that is, they can regenerate their body parts, the metameric segmentation that is found on them, the longitudinal muscles aid movement in them,